I'm Alex, 26, and I've always been the responsible one in my family. You know the type: quiet, consistent, dependable. I didn't cause trouble, didn't ask for much, didn't expect birthday parades or grand thank yous. I just did what I had to do. I started working part-time when I was 15, skipped the party scene in college to freelance on the side, and by 25, I was financially stable enough to buy my own place and keep a comfortable emergency fund. It wasn't flashy, but it gave me peace, and in a family where chaos was the default, that peace meant everything to me. That, and control over my life. Or so I thought. My relationship with my parents had always been complicated. My mom, Elaine, had a habit of emotional manipulation dressed in faux concern. My dad, Richard, played the silent accomplice role. He rarely initiated anything, but always backed her up like a tired understudy reading from a well-rehearsed script. I was the youngest of three, but the only one who didn't rely on them financially. My older sister, Mallory, still lived at home with her two kids. My brother, Travis, floated from gig to gig, constantly needing a temporary loan that never returned. So I became the unspoken safety net, the one they could lean on, the one they could guilt into generosity. Except, I never saw it as generosity. I saw it as quiet survival. Keeping them at bay with small sacrifices, helping with groceries here, a school fee there, hoping they'd stay off my back. Then, 1 week before my birthday, a date no one had acknowledged in years, I noticed something strange. I had logged into my bank app during my lunch break to schedule a payment for a software subscription, and at first, I thought there was a glitch. My savings account showed a balance that was wrong, way too low. I clicked in, blinking hard, refreshing the app twice. My heart started pounding, my stomach clenched. 18,000. Gone. Not transferred. Not moved to another account. Spent. In chunks over 3 days, airfare, hotels, restaurants, some luxury resort in Aruba. I stared at the screen in stunned silence as my sandwich sat untouched on the desk beside me. It felt like the floor had just cracked under me. I didn't even remember getting up, but the next thing I knew, I was pacing the break room, phone in hand, already dialing the fraud line. The woman on the other end was calm and efficient, but her tone shifted when she read through the list of charges. "Mr. Callahan," she said carefully, "did you authorize a $6,300 transaction at the Sunset Coast Luxury Suites?" No, I didn't authorize any of it. She walked me through the steps to file a formal dispute, told me to contact the police for an identity theft report, and advised I freeze the card immediately, which I did. It wasn't until I got home that the real nightmare started. I confronted my mom the next day. Not accusatory, just cautious. I've learned not to enter those conversations with heat. I asked if she'd noticed anything strange on her end, or if she'd been contacted by the bank. She blinked at me, slow and wide-eyed, like a deer before impact. Then came the soft, passive voice I'd heard all my life. "Oh, honey, we were going to tell you," she said, resting her hand on my arm like that would dull the blow. "It was a family vacation. Your dad and I wanted to do something special for once. Just unplug, reconnect. You know how things have been lately." I pulled my arm away, voice barely above a whisper. "You took my money." Her lips tightened. "We needed it, Alex. You never let us in. You never do anything with the family. And you just sit on all that money like it means more than people. We deserve this." I looked over at my dad, hoping, praying, that maybe he would say something. Something sane. But he just shrugged. "You'll make it back? What's 18 grand to you? You're the golden child now." My breath caught. Golden child? I worked every hour I could for that money. I skipped vacations, cooked at home, drove the same 10-year-old car through snowstorms. I lived below my means so that I'd never have to come crawling to them. And somehow, that was a sin. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't flip the table, though every muscle in my body told me to do something loud, to make them see what they'd done. Instead, I just smiled. Not a kind smile. Not a forgiving one. Just a small, cold smile that made both of them go quiet. "I understand," I said. "Thanks for the honesty." That was it. No threats. No dramatics. I got up, went home, and started making phone calls. Filed the official police report for identity theft. Submitted the documentation to my bank. Changed every password, added security alerts, and, most importantly, froze all linked accounts that had once been set up to help the family during emergencies. I didn't respond to the texts that came the next morning. Just vague updates from Mallory saying how beautiful the resort was. A family selfie with Travis throwing up peace signs in front of a seafood buffet. My mother lounging in a cabana with a caption, "Finally getting what we deserve." They didn't know. They had no idea what I'd already set in motion. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from my sister. Her voice was cracking, fast, panicked. Something about not being able to check into the second hotel. About mom's card getting declined. Then another message, Travis cursing in the background. Something about the flight home being canceled. About the resort manager mentioning fraud suspicions. About being stuck. I replayed that voicemail 3 times, not because I didn't understand, but because I wanted to memorize it. Let it sink in. That moment, sitting in my silent apartment, phone in hand, sun setting through the window, that's when it hit me. The shift had happened. The years of swallowing frustration, of being the quiet scapegoat, the dependable ghost, were over. And that was only the beginning. I wish I could say I felt triumphant in that moment, that I grinned like some movie villain watching their master plan unfold. But honestly, I just felt tired. Numb, even. The kind of tired you only feel after years of swallowing disrespect in polite doses. Like every sigh, every backhanded comment, every "you'll understand when you have a family of your own," had slowly built this weight on my chest. And now that it was finally lifting, I wasn't sure what to do with all the space it left behind. The next morning, I went into work like normal. Poured myself some black coffee, checked my inbox, nodded politely during a team meeting, all while my phone buzzed nonstop in my pocket. I didn't check it. Not yet. I wanted the silence to stretch just a little longer. Around noon, my coworker Jordan peeked over the edge of my cubicle and raised an eyebrow. "Everything good, man? Your phone's been vibrating like crazy." I shrugged. "Family stuff." He nodded in that knowing way only people with similar scars understand. "Well, if you need a lunch break, let me know. I owe you one." At exactly 12:31 p.m., I stepped outside, sat on a bench facing the city park, and finally unlocked my phone. 17 missed calls, 9 voicemails, and a tsunami of text messages. Some from my parents, some from my sister, a few from numbers I didn't recognize, probably hotel staff or travel agents trying to sort out the chaos. I skipped to the most recent voicemail. It was my mom. "Alex, please call me. We're stuck. The cards aren't working, and the hotel is saying there's a fraud case open. They're talking about the police. We need you to explain this was a misunderstanding. Please. We're your family." Family. That word, so soft in her mouth, so sharp in mine. I played the message again, and then again, and then I listened to the one from Travis, which was far less diplomatic. "Yo, man, this isn't funny. You froze everything. We're in the middle of the freaking Caribbean, and the manager just threatened to call the authorities if the charges don't clear by tonight. I don't know what kind of petty revenge trip you're on, but grow up." Petty. Revenge trip. Mallory's message was the worst. Not because of what she said. She didn't yell, didn't accuse. She just cried. Kept whispering that the kids were scared, that they didn't understand why the hotel staff took away the key cards, why Nana was crying in the lobby, why Uncle Travis kept yelling at the front desk. I sat there listening to her sob into the speaker, and, for a moment, I almost felt it. That old tug in my chest. The guilt reflex. The urge to fix it all just so nobody would be mad at me anymore. But then I remembered the look on my mom's face when she said, "You never do anything for us anyway." And the smug, lazy shrug my dad gave when he added, "You'll make it back." Like I was an ATM with a family name. A tool. A punishment sponge. No, this wasn't guilt. This was clarity. For once in my life, I wasn't the one cleaning up the mess. I wasn't the one losing sleep, apologizing, or making excuses for people who never did the same for me. That night, I got home and found 3 handwritten letters in my mailbox. No stamps. Mallory had driven over while I was at work. One envelope had little stickers on it, her kid's handwriting on the back, calling me Uncle Al. I didn't open it. I set it on my desk and stared at it for a long time, wondering when exactly my family forgot I was a person. Maybe they never knew. The emails started the next day. One from the resort's legal team, another from the airline, explaining the flagged account, and a particularly interesting one from the bank's fraud department, confirming that the investigation was escalating due to the volume and nature of unauthorized activity. I was being asked to provide further documentation, including any communication that indicated the suspects had accessed my banking credentials. So I did. Screenshots, messages, voicemails, even the photo my sister posted to Facebook of all of them clinking margaritas on a private beach, with a caption that read, "Thanks to Alex for making this happen. He doesn't even know yet, LOL." They really posted that. Publicly. Tagged me in it, and everything. By the end of the week, the tone of the messages had changed. "Alex," my mom wrote in an email now stripped of emojis and exclamation points. "We need to talk. Things are getting serious. Please, let's not involve lawyers. We can fix this. We're sorry, okay?" My dad sent one too. A single line. "We didn't think you'd take it this far." And that's what made me laugh. Take it this far. Like I'd gone rogue. Like I was the one who crossed a line. Like this wasn't their choice. Like they hadn't sat around a dinner table and decided, as a collective, that stealing from me was a fine trade for 2 weeks of beachfront brunches and ocean views. I took a deep breath, stared out my window, and finally allowed myself to think about what my birthday was going to look like this year. Alone? Probably. Peaceful? Definitely. And as I watched the clouds drift across the sky and the emails keep piling in, each one more desperate than the last, I realized something. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry. I was done, and they had no idea what was coming next. By Monday morning, the situation had escalated into something even I hadn't anticipated. I'd expected them to panic. I'd expected guilt-tripping, manipulation, maybe even a few flying accusations about how cold or ungrateful I'd become. What I hadn't expected was Mallory showing up at my door in person, her youngest kid on her hip, the older one fidgeting behind her, looking like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't even knock properly. Just a few light taps followed by a shaky, "Alex? Please. I know you're in there." I waited a beat. 2. I was still in sweatpants, mug of coffee in hand, nowhere near ready to play peacemaker or referee. But something in me told me to open the door. She looked small, which was weird. Mallory had always been the loud one, the confident one, the first to call someone out at Thanksgiving or hijack the AUX cord at family barbecues. But that woman wasn't the one standing in front of me now. This one had sunken eyes and a voice that sounded like it was being held together with duct tape and desperation. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Please." I didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let her in. The kids quietly wandered to the couch. I offered them juice boxes I'd forgotten I had in the fridge, and they nodded, eyes darting around like they were waiting for someone to start yelling. Mallory sat at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of lukewarm tea like it was her last lifeline. "I didn't know," she said finally, barely above a whisper. "About the account. About the vacation. I mean, I knew we were going. Obviously. Mom said it was all covered, but she told us you'd offered. That it was your way of reconnecting." I almost choked. "You believe that?" She looked away. I wanted to. There it was. That quiet truth sitting in the room like a third sibling. She wanted to believe the fantasy. That I'd finally come around. That maybe I had decided to just throw money at the problem because that's what they'd always expected me to do eventually. But now that it was all unraveling, now that the bank was asking questions and the resort had withheld their passports until the matter was resolved, the truth was harder to ignore. "You do know that what they did is criminal," I said, keeping my voice level. "Not just a misunderstanding. Not a mistake. Identity theft." Mallory nodded slowly. "I know. And yet no one called to apologize. Until the credit cards stopped working." Her eyes welled up. Not big, dramatic tears, just this tired shimmer of someone who knew there was no right thing to say. "They're blaming me now," she said after a long pause. "Mom says I should have talked you down. That I'm the only one you still listen to. Dad won't even speak unless it's to complain about the hotel food or how embarrassing this all is. And Travis is trying to sell his old PS5 to pay for their flight home. It's a mess." I didn't respond. Because I'd heard this before. Different version, same plot. It was always my job to patch it up. To take responsibility. To somehow play translator between their selfish decisions and reality. But this time, I wasn't interested in being their cleanup crew. "What do you want, Mal?" I asked quietly. She looked at me like that question cut deeper than anything else. "I want them to understand," she said. "I want them to stop using you like a bank account. I want them to see you as a person again." I leaned back, studying her. For a moment, I believed her. Or maybe I just wanted to. But then she added, "And I want you to make the call. To the bank. Tell them you're dropping the investigation. My stomach went cold. There it is, I murmured. She flinched. Alex, come on. The kids are scared. They're stranded. Do you really want this to turn into something worse? They could get arrested. They should get arrested, I said, sharper than I meant. They stole from me, lied, manipulated you, and now you want me to save them again? What happens next time, Mallory? They drain my retirement? Forge my signature on a mortgage? It won't happen again. You don't know that. She looked like she wanted to argue, but she didn't, because she didn't know that either. Deep down, she knew exactly what I knew. Our parents weren't just flawed. They were entitled. And people like that don't stop until you take away the tools they've used to get away with it. My phone buzzed on the table between us. Another email. I didn't even need to check who it was from. I'm not calling the bank, I said flatly. And I'm not dropping the case. They made their bed. They can lie in it. Hopefully on the cheap motel floor they'll be checking into soon. Mallory's face crumpled, but she nodded. And for once, she didn't argue. She gathered the kids, whispered a soft, "Thank you for the juice," on their behalf, and walked out. I watched from the window as she buckled them into the back seat of her weather-beaten minivan. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel cold, either. I just felt solid, like I was finally standing in the center of my own life instead of orbiting theirs. That night, the group chat blew up again. First from Mom. "How could you do this to us? We're your family." Then Dad. "You've made your point. End this now before it gets any worse." Then Travis, of course. "You're not the only one hurting here. Don't be selfish." Selfish. Selfish. The guy who stole from me and spent my money on a flaming margarita and parasailing had the nerve to call me selfish. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened a folder on my desktop I'd labeled Case Docs. Inside was everything I needed: bank statements, call logs, photos, screenshots, timestamps. The detective assigned to my case had asked for a follow-up, and I was more than ready to give it to him. But I still hadn't told them the worst part. They had no idea what was waiting for them once they landed, if they ever made it back. And I was about to make sure the welcome home party was unforgettable. I didn't sleep that night, not out of guilt or indecision, but from sheer adrenaline. The kind that hums under your skin when you know something is about to snap. But this time, you get to be the one holding the scissors. I woke up early the next morning, brewed a cup of coffee that I barely touched, and opened the email from Detective Ramirez at the Financial Crimes Division. He'd been assigned to my fraud case after my initial police report was verified, and we'd been trading emails over the past week. His last message asked for a few more items: proof of my account activity before the theft, a timeline of when my credentials might have been exposed, and any communication that suggested the perpetrators were aware the funds weren't theirs. Oh, did I have communication? I sent the screenshot of my mom's text. "You never do anything for us anyway," along with the post from my sister's Facebook account that tagged me under a photo of them drinking on a beach with the caption, "He doesn't even know we're using his card. LOL." I also sent a screen recording of the voicemails, my dad saying, "You'll make it back," and Travis swearing while trying to justify maxing out my card on excursions. Ramirez called me within the hour. "This is more than enough," he said. "I've got probable cause, and I'm filing the formal report with the DA's office this afternoon. If you're okay with it, we'll be issuing a warrant for questioning. You'll be contacted by our legal liaison regarding any civil options after the criminal investigation." I said yes, calmly, steadily, like I wasn't even the same person who used to shrink whenever my mother raised her voice or who let my father's passive-aggressive sighs chip away at my self-worth. The person on the phone with Ramirez wasn't trying to get revenge. He was defending himself for the first time in years. The next 48 hours moved fast. The resort they'd been staying at had canceled their reservation, citing legal complications. The hotel staff had already confiscated their passports for the fraud investigation, as per local regulations when flagged guests were suspected of financial crime. Their flights home were canceled by the bank once all related accounts were frozen. And the final nail? The embassy flagged them for identity theft, meaning they couldn't leave the country without clearing things up with law enforcement first. They were trapped. Mom tried calling me again, for voicemails in a row, each more desperate than the last. She didn't even try to deny it anymore. She just begged, said they were sleeping in the airport lobby, that she was scared, and that she didn't understand how her own son could do this to his family. I didn't answer, but I did listen to every word, not out of cruelty, but because I wanted to remember how it felt to hear her finally acknowledge the consequences. Not apologize. She still hadn't said sorry once, but acknowledged that something was happening she couldn't talk her way out of. On the third night, Mallory came by again. No kids this time. Just her, standing on my porch with a printed letter in her hand. Her eyes were red, but she didn't look like she'd been crying. She looked resigned. "It's from them," she said. "They told me to hand it to you." I hesitated. "Did you read it?" She nodded. "They're trying to sound apologetic. It's all about how they made a mistake, how they were just trying to make memories before getting too old to travel, how you're young and they thought you'd understand, how the family is falling apart and you're the only one who can hold it together. And what do you think?" I asked her. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked me in the eye for the first time in a while and said, "I think I knew this was coming. Maybe not like this, maybe not this soon, but I knew you'd snap eventually. We've been using you for years, Alex. We let you be the fixer, and we didn't care what it cost you." It was the closest thing to real honesty I'd heard from any of them. I took the letter but didn't open it. Just thanked her, closed the door, and dropped it straight into the trash. I didn't need to read it. I'd lived through the real thing. The formal charges hit a week later. Identity theft, fraud, unauthorized access to financial accounts. My parents were ordered to remain in the country until their legal counsel could clear the charges, which meant extended hotel stays, legal fees, and no income flowing from back home. Travis had been picked up on a separate warrant after using my social security number to apply for a car loan last year. Turns out, this wasn't his first time dipping into my wallet without asking. Once the legal process had kicked off, I finally had the option to pursue civil damages, and I did. I wanted my money back, every cent. But more than that, I wanted the court to see the full picture. The years of exploitation disguised as family obligation. The manipulation that was so routine it felt normal. The emotional abuse that had been served in silent spoonfuls since I was a kid. When the hearings began, my parents returned home with the kind of fanfare only public disgrace could bring. Neighbors whispered. Extended relatives stopped answering their calls. Mallory had moved out of their house by then, and she wasn't letting her kids visit anymore. Even Travis stopped speaking to them, though his silence was less about remorse and more about self-preservation. In court, my mom wore a black dress and a rehearsed look of regret. My dad sat stiff and expressionless, like he was still trying to figure out how this all got so out of control. They pleaded guilty to reduced charges. Their lawyer begged for leniency, citing age and first-time offense nonsense. But the judge wasn't impressed. "Your son trusted you," he said, "and you violated that trust not out of desperation, but entitlement." They were sentenced to probation, community service, and ordered to repay the stolen funds through wage garnishment and asset seizure. The court also awarded me emotional damages, citing psychological harm from long-term familial manipulation. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about acknowledgement. About finally, being seen for what I'd endured. After the final hearing, I walked past them in the hallway without saying a word. My mom reached out like she might touch my arm, but I moved around her without breaking stride. She didn't follow. That was the last time I saw them. It's been a year now. My birthday just passed, and this time, I celebrated it with people who actually showed up because they wanted to, not because they wanted something from me. Friends, co-workers, even Jordan from the office brought a cake, which was honestly awful, but I ate it anyway because it came from a place of actual care. I bought myself something too. Nothing big, just a plane ticket. A solo trip. Somewhere quiet, away from the noise. A place where no one knows me as the responsible one or the fixer or the ATM in family form. And you know what? It feels really good. Not because I got revenge, but because I finally stopped apologizing for defending my peace. Because they took something from me. And this time, I took it back.